Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about the 1997 Canadian independent science fiction thriller, slightly science fiction thriller, Cube. And the film begins with a man awakening in an eerily lit metallic cube. On each side of this cubic room there are square hatches leading to other metal cubes. The man makes his way through one of these and is promptly and gorily dismembered by a trap. Five other people, meanwhile, also find themselves in these cubes. They, however, have the good fortune to find each other before getting eviscerated by traps, and they begin to compare notes. The group includes a police officer, a young mathematician, a doctor, an office worker, and a convict who has escaped several prisons in the past. This last member of the group gives them some useful hints about surviving the experience that they're in, and then falls victim to a trap, and that it was more cunningly concealed than he expected and is killed off. Oops. Continuing to search for an exit, the survivors encounter a young man who appears to be intellectually disabled, and this is where the first gaps in their unity appear, as some in the group want to bring him along to help him and protect him, and others see him as a liability for their own survival. As the group's efforts to understand the place they're in and to escape it proceed, the secrets, stresses and strains of their situation continue to deepen the fractures between them, making their chances of survival seem more and more remote. So that is Cube. As I said, it's an independent Canadian production. It was made for about $350,000 at the time and went on to an international box office of about $9 million, so a pretty good return, as well as becoming a cult hit on home video rental. I first saw it on VHS, as did many people. Outside of Japan, DVDs were very much still a minority for movie rentals in the late 90s. I enjoyed Cube when I first saw it. I bought it on DVD many years later and enjoyed it again. So let's talk about what the film does and what it does well, what it maybe doesn't do so well, might cause some issues, and let people know, what's interesting about Cube. So first of all, I wanted to call out that the film has very smart visual design. This in two senses, the first of which is from a real-world maximising our money perspective. They built only two sets. One of a complete cube with the 6 exit hatches on each side. Only one of those hatches was actually functional. However, a fact that the film cleverly conceals by use of the angles of the shots. The set was also constructed with many panels in the walls, patterned in different ways so that these different shot angles make the rooms look like they're different rooms, even though it was all one place. And the panels could also be swapped out with other panels of different colours to create a visually very different room. There are red rooms and green rooms and so on and so forth, white rooms. To save time and work, all of the sequences in rooms of a certain colour were shot together. So they did all the red room sequences at once and then all the green room scenes at another time. Interestingly, it doesn't affect the quality of the film, but interestingly, the people who worked on the movie noticed that, the colouring tended to affect people's mood. People were much more kind of on edge when they were filming the red room scenes, for instance, which is interesting. The film's second set was that of a partial cube, which allowed for scenes of characters looking from one cube into another. So that's the real-world kind of ramifications of the smart visual design. The in-film, in-universe visual design comes out, first of all, in that the visual design does a great deal of establishing the mood of the work. Everything is grimy, industrial, and oppressive. And I think even, and this may be just good fortune, because they call the film Cube and all the rooms filmed, but the fact that the rooms are cube is also oddly unsettling. We are not used, human beings, we don't generally live in spaces that are as high as they are wide and long. It's just wasted space. If you have a room that is, 5 meters or 15 feet across, it's going to be 3 meters or 10 feet high. It's not going to be 15 feet or 5 meters high because there's all that wasted. People don't need that much space. And so the fact that these rooms are cube, it just feels a little bit weird. The proportions feel slightly odd. And I said that may have been luck, but obviously the former aspect of the clever oppressive nature of the look, and so that's definitely not. And people have obviously thought a great deal about the visual design of this film, possibly because the director was originally worked in storyboarding. I don't know. Secondly, Cube presents us with a set of characters who appear to be more or less standard archetypes, and it doesn't do a huge amount to flesh them out more deeply. We don't get to know their rich inner lives, really. And that, is potentially, and has been called by some reviewers, a flaw. But while the film doesn't delve deeply into the inner lives of the people, it does evolve their roles within the group in ways that are not always what you might first expect. Now, this is not the case with every character, of course. If it was, it would become too predictable in its subversion of expectations. But you can't entirely rely on first impressions in the film, which I think is a good thing. It's a good decision. Now, subverting standard tropes is always a potentially risky play. Standard familiar character arcs are standard and familiar because they are effective and reliable. I'm pleased to say that, in my opinion at least, Cube's deviations are also effective, and they have the added benefit that they present some surprises along the way. On the subject of plot and character development, I feel I should add that this film does not provide answers to all the questions it raises about the characters and the place where they find themselves, including why this place even exists. As the tagline on your screen says, don't look for a reason. And if that omission is likely to spoil your enjoyment of the film, well, consider yourself warned. I personally didn't find it to be too big of an issue, because I didn't feel like the film was making the why of the place a part of its mystery. It was very much about how do we get out, how do we survive. And so, the why is not emphasised, in my opinion, in the script, and it's therefore not a big factor to me that it's never actually answered. Finally, one of the things that I find really interesting about Cube is that it's kind of a slasher movie in its structure. You've got a small group of people who find themselves being relentlessly hunted by an implacable homicidal maniac who is unstoppable. It's just that in this movie, the implacable homicidal maniac isn't a person or a creature, or at least not a human or a person who appears on screen. Presumably one or more humans were involved in the construction of this death trap. But we never meet them, and so the lurking menace, the homicidal killer here, is the environment. The rooms are sprinkled with clues that our characters attempt to decipher in their efforts to survive and escape, much as the characters in traditional slashers attempt to find a way to thwart or escape from Jason or Freddy or Leatherface or whoever it is that's chasing them. Structurally, it's quite like a slasher film, and it also resembles a slasher film in its kind of overall tone. It's not a film with lots of direct scare scenes or highly wound tension. You probably won't be hiding behind a cushion because the film is creeping you out. There is a sense of unease and oppression here, and the characters do definitely feel at risk, but it's a lower key, less overt kind of mood that potentially make this film accessible even for people who don't generally like horror movies. Like, this is not a movie that's going to make you to me, it's going to make you really, really antsy and unnerved. It's lower key than that. It's more about watching their fear and desperation, and so it feels a little bit more removed, I guess. I liked it. Some people potentially won't. So that is Cube from 1997. Next time, we're going to go a bit further back in time for a double dose of blaxploitation featuring Pam Grier with 1973's Coffee and 1974's Foxy Brown. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.